So, welcome to Relationship Led Growth Live. I am Joseph Lewin, and today we're talking about activating your sales team on LinkedIn. So, before we get started, it's always good to get a feel for where people are joining us from. So, if you're joining me live, go ahead and let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from. So for me personally, I normally am tuning in from Cincinnati, Ohio, where I live. But today I am actually in Virginia Beach for my brother's wedding. So I am tuning in live from Virginia Beach. Now, we recently had a live on how to build relationships that drive business relationships on LinkedIn. And this is building on some of the concepts from that. Now, you're still going to get value out of this episode, but we had a couple guests on really more the why behind building a personal brand and how that helps you build relationships. And especially from the perspective of a sales team, it really makes a lot of sense to be activating on LinkedIn because it's B2B sales and B2B, especially in these complex enterprise sales, they're really driven by trust, and trust comes through relationships. And when you're just cold pitching people and, trying to reach out to people cold through either email or, in-mail messages or things like that, you're just really not starting off with that place of trust. And so what we're going to talk about today is how do you help your sales team really start off with that place of trust by activating effectively on LinkedIn. So I'm going to kick us off here by sharing a quick video. And grow. So I know it's a quick little clip there, but it kind of leads us into our topic today about activating your sales team on LinkedIn. It's kind of like growing grass. So, again, when you're going to go to grow grass, you have a pile of dirt, you put some seeds down, you cover those seeds with dirt, you put hay down that holds on the moisture, you water those seeds, and then you're going to get growth. So think of this little patch of grass like the LinkedIn feed of your ideal buyer. When they're scrolling through their feed, they're going to be seeing the organic content that's going to show up in their feed. And then the grass is thriving employee personal brands. Most of what's going to show up in the LinkedIn feed of your ideal buyers is going to be organic content from people they're connected with, and then people that are connected with the people they're connected with. And so they're going to be seeing organic posts. Yes, they'll see some posts from company pages, but primarily they're going to be seeing content from personal brands. So an example of a company that does this really well is Gong. They are a software program that records sales calls and then uses AI in the background to analyze the calls and help to improve how your sales team is interacting with customers or prospective customers on calls, and they give you pointers. And I constantly see people from Gong showing up in my feed, almost on a daily basis, definitely on a weekly basis. I'm being inundated with posts from salespeople at Gong and from leadership at Gong. And so when I'm logging in, they're getting in front of me. And when I'm not in a position to buy their software personally at this point, but if I were to be looking for software, I would go to Gong first, 100%, because I'm very familiar with them. I'm familiar with their mission and their vision because I've been seeing them show up. So, if this is the ideal buyer for Gong, then this is their employee content showing up in the feed. So then the question is, does your company show up in your customer's feed like that? Do you have consistently your employees and people from your team, are you showing up for your ideal buyers? For most sales teams, And for most B2B teams, the answer is no. Looks a little bit more like this. The typical sales team really isn't showing up on LinkedIn. And if they are, it's usually going to be, one blade of grass, maybe one person posts every once in a while, but certainly not getting your entire team or multiple people on your team to be consistently getting content out there that's warming up your ideal buyers. So, and in fact, it's, this isn't blank. There's dirt there and mud because the sales team is actually typically using LinkedIn as a tool to research prospects and then cold pitch people. So I blocked out the name and the face here, but this is just a typical me focused cold outreach. And this would be the typical play for a sales team is get on LinkedIn or use Zoom info, find contact information and cold pitch. So that's like that pile of dirt. So, how do we go from muddying up our customers' feeds to showing up with content? Well, we really need to have a plan and a strategy for activating consistently and getting good content out in front of our buyers. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do to activate your sales team on LinkedIn is you have to plant the vision of pipeline growth. Most salespeople have quotas. They have, responsibility to be growing pipeline and to be able to show that. If you can't show your sales team how posting content and regularly engaging on content on LinkedIn is going to help them grow their pipeline, they're just not going to prioritize it. So this is really the key and the most important part to do that. And then the other piece is, what are they going to get out of it personally? How does this help their reputation, and how will this help them grow? I'm going to pause here for a second. So today, this is going to be a little bit more presentation driven, but I have a piece of interactive content for the end. If I have a volunteer to go through a document to help you define a content strategy for some posts on LinkedIn. So if that's something you're interested in, comment and I'll send you a link and pull you on. So I'm going to go through this presentation, and this both is going to go over a little bit of high level theory, but I'm going to get some really practical things here as we keep going along. All right, so we did last week, I mentioned this at the beginning, have personal brands that drive business relationships. That was the previous live we did. If you want to know more about how to cast that vision and talk about the value of building relationships on LinkedIn to your sales team, I would definitely encourage you to go back and watch that live. And if you have any questions about that, definitely reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk with you through that a little bit more. But the high level version of that, just to build on it for this week, a personal brand is kind of like an egg. Most people just see the outside, which is the content, but really what drives good personal brands is what's on the inside. So, at the core, a good personal brand is about building relationships with people. You build relationships by engaging with them. And then the content is just the outside piece that helps facilitate the conversations to help build the relationships. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about, okay, we get it. We need to build relationships. We build relationships by starting conversations. Today we're talking more about how do we actually activate your team to be creating the content to start those relationships. Okay, so you've planted the vision and you're getting the pipeline growth. The next piece is you have to ground that vision with individual content strategies for your contributors. And what I would really recommend doing, and what we do with customers, is look for a few people who are actually really excited about doing this. If you talk with somebody and they're not bought into it, there's no way you're going to get them to take the time. Even if you made it super easy, if they're not bought into it, they're not going to do it. So you have to start out by casting that vision to people, identify 1 to 3 people who are really excited about it, the people who you believe are going to be the most likely to follow through. And then you work with those folks to create an individual strategy. So we planted the seeds. We're covering those seeds over to help them grow with an individualized content strategy. So now I'm going to talk about how we do this at Proofpoint. So when we're working with clients or we're working with our internal team, we try to make this as easy as possible to get started. Now, you could always make this more complex as you've been working with somebody for a while, or they've been creating content for a while. You could change up the format, but it's really good to start with something a little bit more basic and easy to implement, and then build on that. So what we do is we sit down with clients once a quarter, and we use this document as a template. And this is what I'd love to go through with somebody at the end and show you guys live how it works. But essentially, you're going to ask some questions to identify what are some topics that you have conversations with customers that come up consistently. And once you've identified what themes they get asked questions about all the time, and then what they have knowledge about, then we're going to break that down into individual monthly topics. And then we use a framework, the MSTR framework, which is mindsets, skill sets, tool sets, results. So then the way that you fill this document out is by identifying those individual topics and then going, what mindset do your customers need to have to really get the benefit of this mindset change that you're talking about? And then you go through each one of these. What skill set do they need? What are the tool sets that they need? And then what are the results that they're going to see? And then those become the core for 4 different pieces of content. So I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth later, but this piece is really important. It's sitting down with each person and building out that content plan. Okay, then from there, this is the hay that you put down that really keeps all the moisture in and makes sure that your grass can grow. So you have to develop a repeatable content creation framework and process. And if you don't create something that's really easy to implement and something that's repeatable, then it ends up just being pushed to the back burner and falling off. So what are some of the things you need to consider when you're creating a framework for activating your sales team? How will the content be created? Is this going to be on the individual contributor to create their own content and they're on their own? Or are you going to help them develop the ideas and the concepts? Are you going to ghostwrite for them? Or are you going to involve them in the content creation process by extracting the expertise from their head with them and then creating content with them? And then the next question is, how will you ensure that there's consistent execution? Consistent execution is absolutely key to activating on LinkedIn. And so you really want to make sure that whatever you build out and the framework that you're creating is something that can be consistently executed against. And then how can you scale this to the full team? So the way that we do this at Proofpoint internally and with our clients is that Proofpoint or our client companies create a certain number of posts with individual contributors. So we're not ghostwriting, but we are creating content with the individual contributors for their personal brands. And then how do we ensure consistent execution? We have we meet quarterly with each individual contributor to create that content plan. Then we produce 4 videos with written posts at the beginning of each month that we send to the individual contributor. And then we have monthly office hours to facilitate conversations about how to build relationships using LinkedIn. So those are the ways that we're ensuring that there's that consistent execution. And then how do you scale this to the full team? You have to create a repeatable process to make it as easy as possible for team members to participate. And again, sales teams are extremely busy. And so if this isn't something that they can just plug and play, chances are they're not really going to get involved. But on the flip side, it's a personal brand. So if they're not actually involved in the content creation and it's not coming from them, then it really isn't a personal brand. And reposting company content is okay, but you're not going to get nearly the lift and definitely not the relational benefit of that individual contributor being the driving force behind the content. So then that brings us to the process. How do you actually do that? How do you execute on getting these pieces of content out consistently? Well, this is an example of our team members. We've started executing this on internally. So these are 2 posts that we've created with our team, video-driven posts. Okay, so the process for how we do that. Couple questions you need to ask around the process. What tool set will you use to capture the subject matter expertise of individual contributors? What workflow will you use to edit the content? And then what will you do to streamline the process for those individual contributors? So at Proofpoint internally and with our clients, we use software to collect 1 to 3 minute video responses from individual contributors. So the way that works is we have a tool where, I'm going to skip ahead here, show you. We have this tool where we can send a question via video, and then the individual contributor just responds to that question with a 1 to 3 minute answer. And then we're able to take that piece of video content, we produce a polished video for them, and then we write a post for them that's based on the transcript. So we're not ghostwriting for them. It's written in their voice and their tone because it's coming directly from that video response. So by doing that, it ends up taking only about 20 to 30 minutes a month, really on the high end, for the individual contributors to create that content. They're just simply sitting down once a month, answering 4 questions in a 1 to 3 minute video each. And then they're getting a video post with written content to go with it for every single week of the month. And then we use Descript to edit that content. And then we use some AI tools with that to help with the video editing and getting those written posts ready and out the door. And then by using this process and really making it as easy as possible for the sales team, again, to just respond to a question and then have these video outputs from that, we're making it super easy for each individual sales team member to create the content that they really need to be in front of prospects consistently or prospective customers. But then they can focus their time on engaging in the comments on those posts or commenting on other people's posts and building those relationships. That way, your sales team is really focusing on the thing that they're there to do the most, which is to build those revenue driving relationships. And this is just a screenshot of Descript, which is the tool that we're using to do the video editing itself. All right. So then the next piece is, okay, so you've identified those initial people. Definitely want to pilot something like this with a small group. You don't want to start out with trying to implement this for 25 people on your team or something like that. You definitely want to start with just 1 or 2 individual people from your team. Or really, I would say 3 to 5 would be on the high end. Usually it's best to start somewhere in the 1 to 3 range. And then from there, you're going to highlight early growth. So as soon as you start to see your team starting to post, you want to highlight that to the rest of the team. And then if there's relationships that they're building out of that, or you're seeing some early fruit come out of the work that they're doing, then you really want to highlight that. One thing we do at Proofpoint is we have a personal brand content channel in Slack. And so individual team members can be posting their personal brand content in this channel. And that does 2 things. It brings visibility to the fact that people on our team are actually posting, but it also makes it really easy for people from the team to go and engage with that post, which is going to help it get more reach and help it get in front of more of our ideal buyers. Okay, so then the next step is really then to just expand the program. As you're starting to see fruit with those, 1 to 3 initial people in the pilot program, then you can expand that out to a larger team. And at this point, you should have a framework that's repeatable. You should have your content roadmaps that you're really good at knocking out. You should have a good streamlined process for editing the videos and engaging with people on your team. And then you should really start to see results after a couple months of relationships that have been built that are leading to pipeline and revenue. And I mean, I say a few months, if people really are activating and they're spending, say, 30 to 45 minutes a day on top of posting, engaging with people on LinkedIn, they're going to see results a lot faster than that. And then the next step from there is just to execute consistently. And if you're doing that, ultimately it's going to lead to um, your ideal buyers just being flooded with content from people on your team, especially the more niche of an industry that you're in. I mean, if you're selling to salespeople or you're selling to marketers, it's definitely still possible to do this, and your audience is probably more active on LinkedIn than the typical audience. But it's going to take a lot more effort and more people from your team really taking this seriously. But if you're in a niche industry, say that you're in like cybersecurity for critical infrastructure, and that's your primary audience. When your ideal buyers log into LinkedIn, they're going to be seeing posts from your company, people from your company, probably every single time they log in, because uh, they won't be seeing nearly as many posts show up as in some more crowded industries. So the more niche your ideal customer audience is, the faster and easier it is to really flood their feed with people from your team. And this is a way to be getting really just free organic reach. And then you can use this same type of content for a few other things. You can run paid ads and specifically target your ideal customers. And then they are seeing not just the company logo, and some company branded piece of content, but they're seeing the face of one of the people they're going to actually engage with on a sales call. And they're seeing they're hearing your company's point of view. And so long before they're in a place to buy, they're starting to know, like, and trust your team. And if they see the same salesperson show up in their feed over and over and over again, and they're getting value and they're learning something, then they're so much more likely to reach out to that salesperson when they're ready to buy or as they're starting to define their requirements. And it also makes it a lot easier for people on your sales team to reach out. If ideal prospect engages on one of those posts, now it's an absolutely warm outreach to reach out to that person and follow up and start a conversation. And then one final benefit of getting your sales team to activate on LinkedIn is that as creating video content is hard. Being able to look into the camera and say an idea in 1 to 3 minutes that's clear and concise, it takes practice. And with the clients we work with, we definitely help them work through that, but it still takes reps of doing it over and over and over again. And the more that everyone on your sales team or multiple people on your sales team are practicing talking about these concepts and being able to clearly communicate those in a short video, they're going to become a lot better on client calls, and they're going to become a lot better when they're presenting, because they're honing that communication skill of being able to share their ideas clearly and concisely. So 2 things here. One is, if you have any questions about this process, I'd love to talk through it with you. We have that template that I was showing you on screen. We have that available for free for anybody that wants it. So feel free to shoot me a message, and I'm happy to send that over to you to help you build out that content template for people on your sales team. And then if doing this process feels super overwhelming, maybe you're a small marketing team and you see the value and your sales team is starting to buy into that idea, we have a program to work with clients specifically on this. It's a LinkedIn evangelist, social evangelist accelerator. And the idea is that we work with your team to be creating this content consistently for your sales team. So I am going to wrap up a little bit earlier today, but if there's anybody that wants to go through that content framework or go through that document with me live, shoot a comment here real quick and I'll send you a link. And while I am waiting, see if we have any takers, I am going to pull this document up really quick. Just give me a second, and I'm going to walk through an example of it so it makes a little bit more sense. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take a look through this social evangelist quarterly content document. So this is one that I went through with one of our team members, Aaron Weeks. And, as we were discussing what some themes are that he has a lot of expertise in, we came up with performance marketing, which is what he does. And then as we broke that down, we were talking about three different overarching topics in performance marketing that he wanted to talk about. So the first one was a measurement framework for paid media. Second one was the importance of creative. And then the third one is running experiments. So essentially, we're talking through, okay, well, what mindset do performance marketers need to create a measurement framework for paid media? And then as we're discussing that, we came up with this question: how are measurement and attribution changing, and what will the effect be for performance marketers? And that gave him the kind of stepping stone to be able to talk about the mindset with the changing environment that performance marketers need to create a measurement framework for paid media. And then when we're talking about, okay, well, what skill set do they need? The question that we came up that helps him really dive into that, the skill set is, what is the key to developing a scientific mindset for measuring performance marketing? And then we came up with a question for the tool set and the results. So then what we do with this document is then I send him a video question where I just ask him this question that we already worked on together. And then he responds back with a video, 1 to 3 minutes, answering this question. And so at the beginning of each month, I'm sending him these 4 questions. He answers them back, takes 20 to 30 minutes. We take those, develop them into those final videos. And then, the next month we do that for creative and go through these same questions that we worked through. And then the third month, same thing. Send these 4 questions, he responds. And by going through this process, it makes it really, really easy for our team to be able to create this content consistently and be getting it out there, editing it, and having good quality content that's consistently going out to LinkedIn. All right, so with that, thank you for joining me for today's Relationship-Led Growth Live. I'd love to hear from you guys about what you find valuable from these lives. If you like it better when we have more presentation style like this and we're diving into the details and getting a little bit more tactical, or whether you prefer when we're talking higher level with more conceptual, or whether you like the having more guests on and having more guest interaction and bringing them in guests to talk about some of the same things. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So definitely reach out and let us know. So with that, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.